Lonesome Lands podcast. This is not your typical report. This is a special report from Clear Lake, right?
Clear Lake, Minnesota.
Secretary Rollins. What would you call this? Your grandmother's house?
This was our family farm that has been in the family for generations, where I spent all my summers. We called it the farm. Mm-hmm. And so we come up from Texas every summer and work and ride horses and do all the things. So it's very special to have y'all here.
All right. This episode is brought to you by the Chain Ranch. Andrea Hutchinson, our good friend and huge supporter, is having the Chain Ranch is having a bred female sale October 3rd, selling 500 females off the ranch. Mostly Red Angus. It'll be on DV auction, and we will, so I guess save that date. It's a while out, but October 3rd, she wanted to support what we're doing here. And then also, Rick and Teresa Fox wanted to have they wanted to advertise an RCAF meeting September 18th at Nevada Livestock Marketing in Fallon, Nevada. Go out and see Jack Payne Sale Barn, and I'm sure he'll be around. Brent Espel is doing that. She said possibly Hayden Ballard. You know that guy.
Oh, I've heard of him.
Bill Bullard speaking, updates on Farm Bill, MCOOL, public lands, property rights, all the stuff we'll talk about now, probably.
That sounds great. Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thanks, Brooke, for coming on. Again,
Yeah.
this is a truly special treat to be here on your home farm.
Yeah.
You know, big deal. We'll get into that a little bit later, but this was your grandfather John Kerwin's farmstead.
Yeah.
And when I think about Minnesota farming, this is what I
This
picture
is what you think
in
about.
my mind.
Isn't it amazing?
It's amazing, and
Yeah.
we appreciate you inviting us
Yeah.
here. This is going to be special. We're going to just take it by ear here.
That
It's going to be
sounds great.
fun. The first thing we want to ask you, though, is, we're working on 2 years here. Tell us
know.
about the state of USDA and your position as the Secretary of
How's
Agriculture.
it been?
We're at not quite 2 years, Shad. Give
Right,
me a
I
little
know,
bit of
I
little
know.
cushion. A little over a year and a half.
Okay.
2.5 years to go.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember the first time we talked, and then the second time we talked, I have mentioned that the greatest enemy, the greatest challenge with all of this is the time. I just need more time. Trying to deconstruct an entire system that has been wrongfully managed. I mean, the whole agriculture system, wrongfully managed, the worst incentives, consolidation, just so much has happened. It's just going to take more than 4 years to solve for all of that. But hopefully, when we leave in 2.5 years, we can say we got a lot done and we moved up the ball a long way down the field. So a year and a half, I feel really good about where we are. We've, first said we need to recalibrate USDA around the farmer and rancher and not around DEI and crazy climate stuff. And we've done that. Mm-hmm. We need, after not any new trade deals under Biden, we need to reopen the marketplace around the world for America, American goods. We've done that. We've cut the ag trade deficit in half.
Yes.
We're going to have record exports in a lot of our different categories. That's amazing. That's the international market. The more American market with the biofuels, working on that, especially for the Midwesterners, which is where we are now, is so important. And then just putting the farmer and rancher back at the center of policymaking. And we've talked about that too, but it's now more than ever. I mean, I was on a call an hour ago with Howard Lutnick, 2 hours before that, and this is as I'm driving through Wisconsin and Minnesota doing all these events. I was talking to Jameson Greer, the U.S. trade rep, talked to the president a couple days ago about all of this. So it is at the top of everyone's list, but there's still so much to do.
There is a lot to do.
Yeah.
How do you keep it straight? I mean, you are everywhere. You have so many different issues all the time. Yes. How are you keeping this straight in your mind?
You know what? I think it is the benefit of having 4 teenagers that you learn, and being a mom. We're the ultimate multitaskers, right? I bet Sage's mom, your beautiful camera lady, your daughter back there, would probably appreciate that her mom is very good at juggling a lot of ball. And it's funny, President Trump only surrounds himself with people that can keep up. And so I have been in part of his world for almost a decade now, ran his domestic policy council, then built the America First Policy Institute, all around these ideas, and now this. And part of the sort of skill set you need is the ability to do just that. Now, what I tell people though is why USDA is so interesting is that I was with my friend Pete Hegseth over the weekend with his family, and he has a very difficult job, very difficult. But his job is pretty singular, right? He's got to protect America, build the military, and win conflicts. Bobby Kennedy, same thing. HHS, the health of America. USDA is everything. If it's not anywhere else, we've got it. So it's not just farmers and ranchers. It's the Forest Service, right? It's wildfires. We've got 10,000. I've got 10,000 firefighters on our payroll. It's food stamps. So it's the largest. I believe it's the largest, maybe behind Medicaid, the largest welfare program in the federal government. We run through the USDA. All of the things, like we do the payroll for half of the federal employees. We've got 4,500 offices all over the world, all of the international trade. We do all the food safety. I have 7,000 food safety inspectors. All of the border, the APHIS, all the animal disease, which we've all been talking in the World Screwroom a lot. So, and that's all aside from how do we continue to support the farmer and rancher, which is the number one priority. So to answer your question, I just do the very best I can. I ask God, I say, you know what? I'm not asking you to lighten my burden. I'm just asking you to give me stronger shoulders.
A lot of wisdom, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, touching on that, and we'll get to the meat of this conversation here in a minute.
Literally.
But I was talking, I was noticing that we have some lawsuits. A couple of them, one of them came out yesterday against USDA over President Trump's elimination of DEI and ESG. That lawsuit was in Seattle, Washington. My biggest question is, how are we going to justify to the people that we are getting rid of those for the good of the people?
So it's a great question. And on the very first day that I was sworn in, which was February 13th, about 2-3 weeks after the president was sworn in, we canceled 900 DEI trainings in one fell swoop. 900, just USDA. I mean, imagine that, 900. The staff that was affiliated with that, what we found left behind for us in desks, etc. It was never about the farmer. In fact, in many ways, it was antithetical, right? It was like, how do we get rid of the rancher? How do we pull grazing lands back? How do we, organize how we're going to support farmers based on their skin color? It was literally crazy town. So I think that if most Americans were to be able to come into USDA, and I wish everybody could because they could see it, and look under the hood, they would see a completely different organization. And it isn't just USDA, it's across the whole Trump administration. We're now down to the size of the federal workforce from 1966. And it's one of the things that is really a miracle. There's so many miracles in this, right? It's the president survived by this much certain death he shouldn't have. The president somehow had 1,000 years of prison time with all of the felonies that he was indicted, not just charged with, but indicted for. The president had a $500 million judgment against him over the crazy woman in New York. I mean, that's just the president, right? And then you think about the policies, and you think about world history, and you think about never before ever has a government been able to pull itself back from the brink by deconstructing, draining the swamp, is what the president would say, to work to return power to the people. Government doesn't ever do that, which is why you see the great rise of civilizations and then the great fall. And to be at this moment in history at year 250, to see, to your question about DEI and all the craziness, to see us pull back from the brink and to persuade most Americans that that is the way, it's a miracle.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
All right, so get into the meat of the deal. There has been a little bit of frustration in the cattle world. And I guess really the main, I'm trying to think like, what is the question people want the answer to, right? And it's really like, why? Why right now? And, why open the Mexican border to cattle imports and why right now?
Yeah, so I appreciate that. And it's funny, I think it was on this show that I had the opportunity to really explain the Argentinian
Yes.
That was,
beef question
October
too. Yes,
last year.
that's right. That's right. So a couple of important things on that. Number one, the policy question in front of me and frankly the administration was never whether or not we should import Mexican beef. That is a much larger question that is for, it's under USMCA, right? These are years congressionally authorized. Like I can't legally, but could never say we're going to stop the importation of Mexican beef. So this was always a question of when is it safe to reopen the port. And that's why this is very different than TRQs or not on Brazilian beef or how much we bring in from Argentina. Those are all policy questions that we have the opportunity to answer. The movement of lean cattle through 6 different ports through Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona has been going on for over 150 years. And it has always been a part of the beef industry in America. And so when New World Screwworm started getting closer and closer, I said, this is really dangerous and really terrifying. We have to close the port until we get a handle on what this looks like. I think within an hour of closing the port 14 months ago, I started getting, don't do this.
An hour seems like a long time.
I know. I think everyone was like, okay, it's time, go in and talk to her.
Minutes,
yeah, exactly. Time to start beating her with this one. But, everyone said, well, a lot of people said it's not going to come. But most people said, we know it's coming. Don't destroy all of those communities along those 6 ports, the feedlots, the feeders, etc. That's what's going to happen if you close these ports. And again, the New World Screwworm is coming. And so for me, it was a decision of, none of these are easy, right? None of these are black and white decisions. But for me, after a lot of study and conversation and discussion and listening to all sides and prayer, it became very clear to me that the ports had to close. And it wasn't just the Texas ports, it was the New Mexico and Arizona ports too. And that's where a lot of people would disagree with me on the other side of the issue from where you're probably asking the question, that why did we ever close the Arizona ports? New World Screwworm has never even been within 300 or 400 miles of Arizona. But I felt it very important to go much stronger, close every port for probably a year or more, which I ended up doing for 14 months, because that was the only way, from my perspective, we had leverage on the government of Mexico to really step in and really partner with us on this New World Screwworm deal. If I had left the ports open, I believe Mexico would have figured out how to move all the cattle over to Arizona. And eventually the New World Screwworm would have gotten in somewhere way before it did. And what that 14 months bought us was drone technology, FDA fast approval for lots of different medicines. It bought us the approval of the Novo fly, which allows us to only produce male sterile flies. It bought us the opportunity to build and open a dispersal facility in South Texas and build and open a new facility in Matapa, Mexico, which you beat this, of course, we all know, by hundreds of millions of sterile flies. And so that 14 months allowed us to fully prepare when, in fact, if I hadn't done it, New World Screwworm would have been here a year ago, which is what all the models said it would be. And that we think, we've got an issue with herd size now. It would have been 2x or 3x if I hadn't closed all of those ports. So back to my original point, the question for me to answer was not whether or not we should import Mexican beef. That has been answered. If we want to revisit that, we can revisit that, and I'm happy to revisit that because there's lots of opinions. But the question was, is it safe now to at least open one of the ports? And after 14 months, and the fact that we only have 6 now, I think, active cases in Texas, hundreds of miles away from Arizona, it was time to open that port. So we're going to evaluate. We'll keep evaluating. In the 13 million metric tons of beef that Americans eat roughly every year, about 11 million, according to our numbers, is what we raise ourselves. 2 to 3 million we've always imported, and that's always been the case. And so this million head that, not today, now it's only 80,000 head in a month coming through Douglas, but that million that normally comes from Mexico, those lean cattle for ground beef, that represents about 3 to 4% of the total supply when all the ports are open and everything's working. So again, it's a pretty small percentage total, and it shouldn't affect us in our work to keep rebuilding the herd here in America. So that's what I would say. That's a long-winded answer, but I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well,
to
and one of
explain
the things we really need to talk about is the success you're having with mitigating the New World screwworm fly in Texas. I mean, you said, 9 cases, active cases today, 44 total active total cases as of this morning. And then we look on the other side of the border and there's 30,000 down in that southern part. And so it is really, you've proven yourself that your strategy has worked, and that has been fantastic. So I congratulate you on that.
Thank you. Well, I don't think anyone was, in fact, I had the media ask me, forgive me if y'all have heard this, but I had one of the big media outlets basically call our comms team and say, we want to interview Secretary Rollins about New World screwworm. And he's like, okay, what do you want to talk about? And he said, we're all really shocked at how well this has gone. Like we're sort of stunned, and we want to know if she's surprised. And I said, well, yeah, I'll take that interview. You never get that from in Trump world from any media outlet that treats you fairly and wants to write a good story. So he asked the question, and I said I was 100% confident in our plan because we had 14 months to get ready for it, and it ended up coming. Everyone thought the sky was falling. I had 1,000 people on that first Zoom I did the day we confirmed the case in Texas. I said, open it up to anyone in the media. I think you guys were on it too. Yeah. They need to hear from me. I'm hopeful in how this is going to go, but my promise to you on day one is I'm going to be fully transparent. I'm not going to hide anything. We're going to just talk about this and work on this together. On that day one, I felt very confident in our plan. What I didn't know, and the outlier for me, was the wildlife, because I felt confident with the cattle piece. And in fact, of the 44 confirmed cases, I think maybe 35 of those are cattle.
Yeah.
Of those 44, every one of those animals has survived and is now thriving.
Sure.
We've not lost one animal.
And zero wildlife.
Well, that was the point. So what we didn't have in the 50s and 60s when we beat this the first time was wildlife in South Texas. Now you have this crazy, huge, thriving hunting industry, billions of dollars of hunting industry down there with millions of deer, millions of feral hogs, and that's where we just didn't know if that was going to be a massive challenge or not. But I tell you what, our drone program, we have now reviewed through AI and human eyes almost 70,000 different wildlife we've caught on drones, and ones that we see problematic, we zoom in on. We know exactly where they are thanks to AI and this drone technology. Thank you to Mark Wayne Mullen and Department of Homeland Security, who's loaning it to us. That was another thing as we've deployed that. And all of them have proven negative, and we've dropped sterile flies over them. So that's the difference today versus 50 or 60 years ago, is while we don't have 400 million sterile flies yet, we have 100 plus million. Matapa's now putting out 10 million or so a week. So we're going to be very close to 100 million soon there. And we've had enough to be able to rig it.
Regionalize it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So within 4 hours of a confirmed case, we're dropping 10 million flies over that.
Incredible.
And that's how you're doing it.
Yeah. Well, it's a fantastic job.
Okay, so the border question goes right into, it has brought up this in the cattle world. The main discussion now is mandatory country of origin labeling on beef.
That's right.
You've said you're for it. Everyone is kind of fighting on the internet as they do. Just your thoughts on where we are there and going forward.
Yeah, so I have been very clear that I am 100% in support of mandatory country of origin labeling. I realize there's a lot of people split on this in our world, but from my perspective, if you are America first, and if you are for the American farmer or rancher first, then there's no alternative. There are a lot of policy questions where there's a gray area. There are a lot of things, like we were talking about reopening the ports and when to do that. There's just no question on this one. It's black and white.
Yeah.
If you love America and you love American farmers and ranchers, then how can you be against the idea that we're going to label where our beef and our food comes from? Period. Full stop.
Wonderful.
And
to
I
hear.
think the, just real quick, I think the arguments over the internet are just are corporate driven, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
all about who's having to pay and all this. But for me, I like to make it simple. You're either a freedom maker or a freedom taker,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think we have the responsibility to uphold the Constitution, provide the freedom of choice to our consumers and our producers, and that's why I'm behind MCOOL all the way.
Yeah, I agree. And listen, no one does beef like America.
Nobody.
No, even comes close.
That's why they label it all around the world.
Well, that's exactly right. And everywhere I go to these other countries, when I'm selling soybeans or ethanol or America, whatever it is I'm selling, what we have done in America across agriculture, but especially in beef, is one of the greatest, most amazing America First success stories of all time. And so the idea that we wouldn't do something to better support and elevate and honor our great American cattlemen, I just don't understand. And so I realize there's some corporate, big companies involved, and so maybe that's the reason. But this is very easy for me, and so I'm all in support of it. And I'll also say, as we're looking at solving the cattle herd numbers at their lowest ever, at least in the last 75 years since we've been tracking, we're trying to do everything we can to incentivize rebuilding that cattle herd. This is just one more step to tell our ranchers, we've got your back. We are going to support you above everybody else. We are America first, and therefore we're going to support country of origin labeling. Period. Full stop. And the other thing is, as we're going into Make America Healthy again, people want more and more beef. They want American beef, and they need to know what it is and what it is not.
Certainly
Right
the demand
on.
for American beef has not
It
wavered
is
at
at
all.
a historic high,
It is.
and it's only going to go more, honestly. So it's exciting.
Brooke, we appreciate you. And
Thank you.
one of the
Thank
things
you.
we always talk about is you've given the independent rancher and farmer a voice. And that is so different from former secretaries of agriculture. So thank you from the American
thank
people.
you.
Thank you from us. And it's been a pleasure to work with you.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. Well, y'all have been great, and it's interesting because people seem so surprised on some of the moves that I've made, good and bad, frankly. The good news is, working for Donald Trump, he just wants us to do what we know is best and not listen to the noise. And so for me, it's very freeing. I'm just here to do the right
You've
thing.
been very transparent.
Yeah, and the other thing is what President Trump represented when he came down that golden escalator in 2015, that none of us really fully understood until we really got into it, and especially now 10 years later, is that that escalator ride into history was about returning power to the people that couldn't afford lobbyists in Washington, D.C., the people who weren't going to the cocktail parties, right? The people who weren't able to write 6- and 7-figure checks to their politicians, the people who weren't representing big business. That's who he is and what he represented. And so that, I think, translates to my job and why I've taken so seriously bringing all people to the table, not just your normal status quo, So, and we're gonna keep doing really good things together. So I'm grateful to y'all too. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for being with us.